Hi there, welcome to Manja. I'm Suze Montgomery, and today we're talking fermenting. Now, there's been a lot, at the end of summer, which is we're approaching fast, and getting closer to fall, when the weather changes, you probably got stuff growing in the yard. If you don't, you could find it at your farmer's market. It's probably cheaper now than it was at the beginning of the season because it's on the wane. Everything's slowing down in growth cycles. So today, instead of doing pickles, which I did do pickles, but instead of doing the traditional way of pickling things, I thought I'd ferment. Now, fermenting is quite a bit different from pickling because it's so much easier. I can remember when my grandmother, Nona, or Noni, would have this big, huge pot, and she would put glass jars in there like this one. In fact, this is one of her jars, and you can tell because on the very top, this is glass. Now they make them out of tin, but this is probably close to 100 years old, that jar. Anyway, she would put these in there to sterilize them to make sure that there would be no bacteria or anything from a previous thing that she made, either jam or pickles or whatever she made. But now you throw them in the dishwasher and you buy those rubber gaskets. I mean, they're super cheap. You don't even have to worry about those. You use them a couple seasons, toss them out. But I did fermenting because I don't have to boil anything. So after you make like a jam, they would say put it in a hot water bath for like an hour or something and let it cook. Who's going to do that? Not this kid, believe me, especially when it was hot this week. Forget it, I'm not doing that. Fermenting is just like vinegar, salt, vegetables, whatever. And it's so easy to do. You just mix up the mixture, and like pickles, I would use pickling spices. So let's start with one that in my grandmother's jar that I held up. This is fermented garlic slices. And did I cut all these? Well, I've got a thing called a mandolin, which is another show that you have to watch the show to get the continuity with here. But a mandolin is, or even a Cuisinart, which is a very sharp blade, and you do it in a 90-degree angle, and it actually cuts things relatively fast, including nails, knuckles, losing skin. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to do. And you can buy these mandolins anywhere, Bed Bath & Beyond, whatever, Amazon, whatever. I bought my first one in Paris in 1988, and I think I paid $200 for it, which was a lot of money in 1988. But I still have it, and I'll show it to you when I do that show. But so I made pickled garlic, okay, fermented garlic. I also have, now you can do this one at home. You don't have to make anything here. This is the cheap way of doing it, an easy way of doing it, and don't tell anybody you heard it from me. You buy a big thing of olives. I don't know if you can see this. These are olives that you can buy in a store. You can buy them by big gallon jars or anything like at a wholesale grocery. Smart and Final or one of those places. Take it home, put it in a jar, and cover it completely with garlic cloves sliced in half and olive oil, and it preserves it. Keep it refrigerated. They'll last longer than you'll be alive. So try doing that one. I also did bread and butter zucchini chips. Now this was zucchini I had in the yard. It was starting to get pretty big. You know how they turn into baseball bats overnight? This always happens to me. I go out there and I go, how the hell didn't I see that thing growing before? And all of a sudden you got a baseball bat. So rather than eat it, which fresh, or slice it up, which is going to be very dry, because when they get that big they get dried out and they don't taste very good. They're kind of like sawdust. So you take these up and you cut them in small pieces, which I did. And I put in some sliced Spanish onion and some red bell pepper, covered them all with a salt vinegar bath. Now at the beginning when Rich was showing you what we were doing here, I use pickling salt. Now we're going to have to do a show on salts. And salts are so important in your kitchen. I mean, you can't eat food without salt. You could if you're in a hypertension diet, but it's not going to taste so good. I mean, you're going to eat an egg without salt? Nah, not me. So anyway, I use a certain kind of salt, and it's just for pickling. So if you take this salt that I'm talking about, the pickling salt, and put it under a microscope, you're going to see the granular composition of the salt. Now what I use here, here's another salt, in my salt pig. This is a salt pig. This lives on my refrigerator, my stove. And this is kosher salt. And kosher salt, if you put this under a microscope, it looks like a small triangle. It's flaked, and it's not intense sodium. Now this pickling salt is intense sodium. And then regular table salt, which is the Morton stuff, you don't want to use that. You probably want to use kosher salt in cooking. But the pickling salt is specifically used for fermenting or pickling. And here's another one, talking about other things that I made. Now Rich was teasing me about this before we started taping. These are pickled onions. You see these a lot in Mexican grocery stores or Mexican takeout food. These are pickled onions. This is basically vinegar, white wine vinegar or white vinegar. You can buy a gallon of this stuff like less than $3 and it'll last you the rest of your life, unless if you buy something new for like clothing and you're afraid, like say it's a red shirt and you don't want it to bleed on the rest of your laundry load, throw in a cup of white vinegar, just regular old crappy cheap vinegar, and it'll set the color and it won't bleed into the rest of your laundry. A little sidebar note. Okay, talk about onions. I made onion confit. Now this is something you've got to make. Onion confit is basically, a confit means it is preserved or cooked or kept in fat. This is solid butter. Of course it's butter, right? What else would it be? So you put the onions in here, you cook them down, maybe a little bit of beef broth if you want a flavored taste, and a couple maybe small pieces of pepper. I like Telecherry black pepper because it's got the most impact. And you cook them down. This will stay in here. This is so good on a rare burger. Big piece of Roquefort cheese. Great homemade pickles like here. And onion confit. Like you could die for this. On a brioche bun. Here's another thing I made. I made all this stuff for you guys this week. This one is dill pickles using fresh dill. You can see the dill in the side. And I grow my own dill. Red onion, and actually more squash. This is squash. It's not zucchini, but it's squash. It's yellow crookneck squash and green squash. It's a variety of a zucchini, but not really a zucchini. And I made this, and this tastes like pickles. Again, pickles are one of my favorite things. A lot of people don't like pickles because of the vinegar taste, but the thing is, after you use pickles, by the way, and all these are gone, keep the liquid. You can actually drink the liquid, because what vinegar does to your digestive tract is neutralizes and it makes your stomach feel better. I mean, a couple of shots of this after going out all night, it'll either kill you or make you better. I think it makes you better. It's probably psychological. Another one I made was talk about pickles. These are little baby Kirby cucumbers. Kirby's are the ones that they use most often when they make commercial pickles. And in here, I've got pickling spice and mustard seeds at the bottom, white wine vinegar, a little bit of dill, and some black peppercorns. And again, they look good, right? And, oh, there's the garlic. See the garlic cloves in there? I like these just to open them up and crunch on one. They're really crunchy. These are the ones you get in Jewish delis, which I love delis. Now, let's see what else we have. Oh, I made red cherry tomatoes that I actually fermented as well. Now, these would be really good if you mix them with a little bit of sugar and maybe some allspice or maybe some cinnamon, and you let them sit overnight and out and not refrigerated, out on a counter, and let them just kind of macerate, which is a word like marinate, but it means not refrigerated. So you want to macerate these. Let's see, I think we're just about done. Oh, I've got the last one. The last one are candied jalapeños. Oh, let me tell you about this. This was an interesting story this week. So I went to the local little Mexican market down the street because I know they've got really good jalapenos. And I bought the red ones and the green ones. Now the difference between is the red ones are older. So the longer you leave a jalapeno on the plant, and they don't get really big, but they do produce a lot, they get red. Do they get hotter? Not necessarily. And here's the tip about jalapenos or any of the chilies that are hotter like that, like on the Scoville scale. When it gets really cold during the winter, chilies try to protect themselves from freezing, and they get super, super hot. I found out the hard way when I owned a Mexican restaurant. When I heard screaming from the floor, and I went out there to see some woman writhing, and she said, "Oh, I can't eat this. You know, this. What was it? It was a stuffed green chili, which was in Anaheim, which is a wimpy chili, right?" No knowledge I had of the chili that when they get really cold, they protect themselves and they don't freeze. So the capsaicin, which is the hot ingredient in a chili, protects itself and it turns the whole chili super hot. So they're smarter than we are, I guess. So when I made these with vinegar. Let's see, what else did I put in here? A lot of salt, again, pickling salt. I kept the seeds in here. That's something to remember. When you clean fresh chilies, generally speaking, you take out all the membranes and the seeds. That's where the heat is. It's not in the chili flesh at all. It's in the seeds and the membranes. But I wanted to keep the integrity of this chili, and I wanted to keep it hot. So I left the seeds in here. You can see the seeds in here. And with the red ones and the green ones, and lots of sugar. So these are going to be sweet hot. Now, America eats differently, and the way America eats is interesting. I have to credit McDonald's with coming up with this idea. They have addicted a nation to sugar and salt. Think about it. When your kids want those Happy Meals, they don't want the toy so much as they want the food, which is the French fries, which are salty, and the ketchup, which is sweet, because ketchup is what? Vinegar, tomato paste, and some spices. You can make that easily enough at home too. But kids were addicted by this, so it's like, oh my God, McDonald's. I remember these Happy Meals. I would take the bag and throw it in the back and wished I had one of those old limousines where you could roll up the window and just shut the kids up. Didn't work that way. I always wanted one though. Anyway, so I made the jalapenos as well. So all of these this week, I just had a ball doing this. And the final one, the final, is this one that you can do really easy. These are preserved Moroccan lemons. And what this is nothing but salt and the lemons, and you put them in a container that's tight like this on the top. You don't need to use a canning jar. And what happens is they kind of just deteriorate by themselves. They don't go bad, but what they do is kind of just ferment on their own. And these are so good in a chicken. Like, get a whole chicken when they're on sale at whatever grocery store, stuff them in the cavity, rub the whole thing with butter, of course, and on the outside maybe some good kosher salt, but put these inside, and it will keep them moist and really flavorful. So fermenting, I would say, is a big deal, especially this time of the year. And what happens on Sunday this week? A whole section of the LA Times food section on what? All the ways to ferment and all the things you can make. What cornichons, giardiniera, pickled turnips, all these different things, and why you should be fermenting and not pickling, getting back to the original subject. Why go through all that hassle your grandmother or your mom did? What's the point? Just ferment. It's easy, it's fast, it's cheaper, and it's a hell of a lot tastier. Believe me, I love to do this. So I've got one whole refrigerator in my garage, which is it's for chocolate, champagne, beer, and fermented vegetables. Not so bad. Then when it comes time for Christmas, I wipe the whole thing out and take everything out of there, put it in ice chest over for about a month. I have to change the ice out all the time. Why? Because then I take the refrigerator and turn it down as low as I can get it, and take a prime rib and put it in there and dry age it. You can dry age your own meat at home if you're a carnivore like I am. I mean, I've never met a piece of meat I didn't like, right? I'll try anything. Even tried squirrel and some other things too. I know I'm not going to do a show on that. I'm sure you're not going to like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today. And again, take a chance. Try to ferment. It's really easy. And it's tasty. It's cheaper. And the recipes are so good. So, join us again.